welcome to another episode of Shooting
the Shit with Rachel Ann
and Neal Young. We're talking all things real estate photography business growth, mindset, and getting it done. Here come your favorite true entrepreneurs, Rachel Ann and Neal Young, shooting the shit.
I have a ferret on the Like if we're kind of in a slump, like what kind of things do you do?
Talking about a boob light.
Straddling a power line.
Nice photo.
Ooh, I need that.
I'm like red right now because I'm embarrassed. I go like this. I love it.
Hey, come in.
Sure, use your podcast voice.
You know, over here, I'm pitting out.
Drone's like flipping to the ground.
That's a great callback.
Chit-chatting.
Is that what you call that? Hey!
Rach, who do you love?
HD Photo Hub.
Today's episode is brought to you by HD Photo Hub.
The platform real estate photographers trust.
And so do we, because Rach and I both use it on a daily basis. Check it out.
Check it out.
Check it out.
Check it out. Check it out. Check it out. Check it out.
Chickadee, check it before you wreck it. All right, guys, welcome back to Shooting the Shit with Rachel and Neal. And today we've got an exciting guest. We've got Kevin Rhatican from out in Oklahoma. I'm excited to hear a little bit about his business. He's got a big team here doing great business. And I did a little diving already, just looking at the website and stuff, Kevin, but I'm excited to hear a little bit more about you and the biz and how you've grown it and all that stuff. Now, Rach, how did you originally meet Kevin?
Yeah, so at PMRE this year, I was on the panel with HD Photo Hub, and Kevin was one of the panelists up there as well. So, and they asked us the milestones in our business. And yeah, it was good. It was cool because they had 4 guests up there with all different stages in their photography business, but all of us had teams. So like one guy, Brad, had 100 shooters and Kevin was the second. And Kevin, how many do you have? Like 17, something like that?
We've downsized a little bit over the off season, but yeah, I mean, we've got 12 photographers right now and customer support and then ownership. So yeah.
Nice. Yeah. And then the other gal, Deanne, she has 7 or 8 people on her team. And then I have a few shooters. So it was a good range of, you know, team size for us to be answering questions about milestones in our business. So it was fun. So yeah, I reached out and said, hey, you want to be on the podcast? So
and of course I said, yeah, that sounds like a good time. So yes.
Awesome.
So
well, thanks
awesome.
for being here.
Yeah, thanks for being here, Kevin. So one of the big things we're excited to chat with you about is just a lot to kind of diving into like the team stuff and growing the business and how you got there. But before we go all the way down there, we'd love to just have a little intro on how you got rolling in the first place.
Sure. Yeah. My resume has a lot of different stops on it before I got into real estate. You know, for a long time, I was on the business admin path. I thought it was, you know, trying to climb the corporate ladder, do the executive type stuff. Gosh, I picked up a camera one day because there was a cute girl that I wanted to get to know a little bit better, and she was all about the cameras. And she's my wife now, so that strategy played out pretty well, I guess.
Nicely done.
Yeah. So, but as it turned out, man, like the business stuff was fascinating, but I was really creative, and I kind of found my creative side through that. And before that, I'd been on the business track in the Air Force. I had been in business admin stuff in college, and lo and behold, none of that was going as well as I wanted it to because I was deep down, I was a creative. So got into graphic design, and the way that I got into real estate was I had a family friend that owned a real estate brokerage, and I didn't know anything about it, but I knew that there was money there. So I was like, hey man, check out this sponsorship opportunity. You want to do this sponsorship thing? He said no to the sponsorship, but then he wanted to hire the guy that did the flyer, which ended up being me. So I was like, hey man, cool, let's do it. So I got into real estate by accident. And one of the things that I've learned is really unique about my journey is that my journey started being in-house at a real estate brokerage. I was a graphic designer at a brokerage for a while and did that for about 3.5 years. And then my wife and I woke up one day. It wasn't quite that simple, but we woke up one day and decided to start our own business. And both of us at the same time left our W-2 jobs and just went fully independent with real estate media business.
So your wife does real estate photography as well then?
So she's more of like the branding and the headshots and the people stuff. But, you know, I'm sure that we'll talk about the growth journey a little bit, but she does know how to shoot houses for sure. And she's a really good photographer with that, but she's actually way better with putting people on camera. So we also were doing wedding photography a lot at the time. We still have wedding photography going on. She backstopped me with the houses basically.
So what were you must have been sort of dabbling in that already, or did you just have an idea and you just went with it?
Yeah, so I started at the real estate brokerage in 2016,
Mhm.
and in 2017, real estate videography, like the video tours started becoming really, really popular. When the brokerage that I was on staff at saw a need for that, I just kind of raised my hand and said, "Hey, I know how to do video stuff, and I kind of understand what we're doing with real estate at this point. I understand realtors, so let me try this thing." There was really no looking back. It started as like, "Hey, yeah, you can go do some property videos, and when there aren't property videos to do, come back and come back and do the graphic design thing." Next thing you know, like I was doing 2 videos a day, 5 days a week, getting booked out for 3 or 4 weeks straight.
Wow.
Because I mean, that was like when video was brand new, right?
Hmm.
So
Yeah, no one was really doing it yet. Yeah, that's great. They kept you busy. Did you
oh
dabble?
yeah,
How'd you get into the photo side?
changes happened, and then more changes happened at the brokerage, and it didn't make sense anymore. I mean, you know what realtors do? They go from one brokerage to another over time, and you look up and it's, hey, I'm at this one brokerage, but three of my favorite people to work with in the industry are now at other places, and I can't work with them. That's kind of when we decided to go out on our own, and I was still video only. When I went independent, it was like, okay, I've got to figure out this photo thing. Like I'm totally backwards. Most people start with the photos and
Yep.
then figure out the video thing. But I was all video all the time, and I had to figure out photos. I mean, that was really dumb looking back at it. I
That's
started
okay.
I started a real estate media company. And I didn't know how to do real estate photos. So yeah,
Well, you must have figured something out
Yeah,
because
you
you're
figured it
killing
out.
it now.
yeah, diving in the deep end, right? So
Yeah,
Hmm.
totally.
Yeah.
So can you explain kind of you have a big team, you have multiple owners. Like, can you explain your power team and the structure?
yeah, so our team, define that for me a little bit.
So your power team is all the people that make your business work. So your editors, your admin, your accountant, your
Sure.
marketing person, CEO. Yeah, all the different
Okay.
roles.
Just sounds cooler when we say power.
It
Yeah.
sounds super cool, and I thought I knew what you meant, but that's yeah. It warrants bringing up at this point that I merged my company that my wife and I owned. We merged back in February of 23.
Okay.
And we merged with we were husband wife team with two photographers, and we merged with a team that had photographers across the state of Oklahoma,
Mhm.
had 15-year plus veteran customer service person in place. So we inherited some of that. When I think of who the power team is, I mean, having business partners is a game changer. Having people to call and say, "Hey, like, what are we doing with our packaging moving forward this year? What are we doing with our bundles? What are we projecting for this year?" So my business partners for sure. My customer service team, I mean, you know what it's like going out, you're doing like 3 or 4 shoots a day, maybe 5, 6 shoots a day, and the phone starts ringing this morning about shoots from yesterday while you're trying to get out on new shoots.
Mm.
The customer service team that we have is a absolute game changer. Big shout out to them. The editors are certainly part of the power team. Editing changes every once in a while, though. I mean, I don't know what your journey's been like with that, Rachel, but the editing team is certainly a big part of that. But we're kind of in the middle of a change right now with our editing team. So yeah,
Yeah.
Same.
Can I ask, are you using eSoft?
maybe.
I interviewed with them and I was going to bring them on board and their test was not good. And then
Okay.
they redid it. I basically told them I want my pictures to look like Brad's.
Yeah, yeah,
And
no,
they
it's
redid it and I panicked and I was like, I can't leave my editor. I've been with my editor for 4 years. Like he does a
yeah,
pretty darn good job. Like when I compared, I was like, there's really no difference. Like and
yep.
try to like retrain everything. It was just I just freaked out and panicked and pulled out. But
Yeah, yeah. No, so the first time that I interviewed with eSoft, I felt the same way. It didn't work well. The test didn't go well. The juice wasn't worth the squeeze on making such a big change.
hmm
I actually ended up meeting them at PMRE this year. I'm sure you did too,
hmm
maybe. Was it conversations that you've been having conversations with them recently
Yeah.
out of
Yeah.
that? Yeah, yeah, yeah. Had conversations with them. We've been having a lot of pain points with our current editing team, not necessarily of like the quality of things getting turned out, but just a lot of communication barriers. We've got 12 different photographers going right now. We had 17 photographers going last summer, getting everybody to format everything in the email correctly. You know what I'm saying? So that the editors open it up and when I ask for something, they know what I'm asking for, but they also know what Larry's asking for and they also know what Rayleigh's asking for. It became kind of problematic. And we've limped our way through that, but with eSoft, the platform that they have solves a lot of those communication barriers. So
Mm.
like the system that we provide for our clients, I think eSoft provides a similar system for us to use as photographers.
Mhm.
And we've made it through the test phase, and now we're starting the implementation phase. And I'm really excited. There's definitely no cost savings associated with it, but the lifestyle improvement for our photography team of, waking up at 7:30 in the morning, wondering, are the property lines done correctly? Is the virtual twilight done? Did all the photos get delivered, or did we get a partial delivery? And we try to deliver by like 9 a.m. or 10 a.m. for our clients from yesterday's shoot. So
Wow.
Oh, wow.
you're waking
Yeah.
up at 7:30 in the morning, wondering if all your stuff's there, and your first shoot of the day starts at 8:45. Like that's, gosh, it's just chaotic. So we are looking at eSoft as an option to maybe improve the lifestyle and what it feels like to be a photographer at Shutter House. So
Cool.
Gotcha.
I like it. I like it. Yeah, the price was kind of the issue too for me. I'm like, oh, it's not that much more, but it is more.
it,
It's just like, ugh.
at scale, when you look at the number of images you do over an
Mhm.
entire year,
Yeah,
5 cents is a big chunk of change. So
totally,
yeah,
totally. Yeah. So it's
Yeah.
25
And you're
up
doing
to 50.
you're doing HDR hand blending, right?
yes,
Oh,
yep.
just so you know, I've got a warning, guys. If I break up a little bit, I've been having weird internet, and it's giving me a warning that my connection is not stable. So if I start breaking up or something, let me know, and I'll just be quiet for a while or whatever, just so I don't mess it up. But just an FYI, okay?
Okay, cool.
So yeah, so you're doing the HDR hand blending with them, and then it sounds like some of the responsibility is on your photographers for making sure the delivery went correct as well. Is that correct, or is that you just used because you handle that as well, or is that for everybody?
No, that's for our photographers currently perform their own quality check in the morning.
Okay.
Got it.
We had some issues along the way. I mean, depending on which editing solution you go with, it can look hand blended, but I was using an editor for a while and I thought it was hand blended, but kept having problems. And I
Mm-hmm.
pushed on them, pushed on them, pushed on them. Anytime that I have a partner, I'm a big fan of like, hey, let's have a vulnerable conversation. Tell me about your process. Let me, what can I do on my end to make things better? Is there any low hanging fruit that I see on your end that you may not see to make things better? Like let's make the partnership better. I thought they were hand blending and they were batch processing the photos. So we definitely moved away from that pretty quickly because with batch processing, you're just never going to be able to get a really reliable, the maroons are going to turn orange, the blacks are going to turn brown, stuff like that.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. You really need somebody looking at it, making sure it's coming out right. Yeah. And I noticed that too. A lot of companies that I've used or editors I've used, their work's going good. And then all of a sudden I'm going, why is this coming out funky so consistently? And I'm like, I think they're automating this somehow. And I'm not sure how, because I never automated when I did the editing. I did it all by hand. So I'm
yep.
not sure what their process is, but I can tell that it's getting generic. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. I asked questions. I'm like, okay, something's off. It feels like we shifted gears 2 weeks ago. Some of these editing companies, they'll be very transparent, but most of them are very smoke and mirrors. They don't want you knowing
Hmm.
what's going on behind the scenes,
Yeah.
which I respect that. That's fine, whatever. But yeah, I would ask them. I'm like, it feels like a preset changed. Did you guys update your preset? And they're like,
Mm.
no preset update. I'm like, okay, something's got to give. So
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
and you've found that generally just by asking a few questions, they'll give you some extra info.
a little bit, but unfortunately, the answer that you get a lot of times is, I promise it'll never happen again, which is just the
Mm.
biggest red flag in the world. If you can't tell me why it's never going to happen again, I can't believe that it's never going to happen again.
Totally.
Yeah, I think, and I wonder too, a lot of time if part of that is because the admin wrangles, however many editors, and do they
Absolutely.
even know what their editor's doing? And if the editor's trying to get away with it, and my question is, how do they pay them? If they're paying them per image, then they're going to get away with whatever they can
Yep.
to get it done faster, right?
These are all the conversations that my business development mind wants to have with when things are not going well with a partner, and ultimately it's been the deal breaker when I can't have those conversations. So I can feel bad and I can love you guys all I want, but at the end of the day, I've got to make good decisions for my team and my clients too. So
Yeah,
Yep,
exactly.
exactly.
Business.
Totally.
yeah.
Kevin, I'd love to backtrack a little bit and just hear a little bit about how you grew from you and your wife, especially like that first shooter. And then when did you know it was time to get another shooter? Because I feel like that's very tricky. I had a shooter and then I tried to get another shooter, but then there's always this like worry. You want to get them on soon enough so that they're ready, but not so soon that they get bored and have nothing to do and then they leave you. How did you handle that? And how did that go for you guys?
Sure. So let me back up even further than that, back to when I
Mm.
was at the brokerage and I was doing 2 videos a day every day. First of all, I did find out that I needed to get more efficient and be able to do more than 2 videos in a day when you're not doing photos. Like I got it to where I could do 3 or 4 videos in a day. But before I got more efficient, I ended up getting booked out for like 5 weeks. Like people would call me up and say, "Hey, I'm gonna need a video on this place." And I'd be like, okay, well, we're looking like 3.5, 4 weeks from now. And they're like, okay, put me on the schedule. And this was before the pandemic, so houses weren't selling lightning fast, but that's just not ideal, man. I got burned so bad. My business, even when I was just at that brokerage, my business volume tanked so bad after that season because people thought that I was always going to be booked out that far out. I mean, I was answering questions 2 years after that time period of like, hey, how far out are you booked? You're not like a month out anymore, are you? So like that became part of my DNA. I learned that to never get booked too far out like that again. Internally, we knew that if it was more than, if I was quoting people more than 3 days out as far as availability, and they're saying, hey, I need it as soon as possible, it's like 3 days. 3 days is an eternity when you have somebody wanting to sell their house and you're trying to get pictures done as a realtor. So 2 to 3 days is kind of the mindset there. When my wife and I launched and went independent, we were at a really large brokerage. Tulsa is a really unique market. There's 4 brokerages or 4 brands that have 90% combined market share. And I was at one of the big ones, right? 25% of the market share, I could call them up and I could say, hey, this is Kevin and Ashton from the Blue Crew. And they knew who we were. So huge advantage coming out of the gate. The business got built pretty quickly. We went independent fall of 19. We brought on our first team member summer of 2020. And it got to the point to where I was going on 5 or 6 shoots a day. My wife was going on 3 or 4 shoots a day. The game plan was never for her to be shooting listings like that. I kind of had a built-in cushion, right? As soon as it was like, okay, there's no break for Ashton, that's when I brought on somebody. I feel like I had a cheat code. I feel like that's not super helpful information for folks. Because I mean, like who has those, stars aligning like that? When she consistently had days of shoots lining up just like I did, it was like, okay, let's bring on somebody else and free her back up to go do her weddings and branding and stuff like that.
Mhm. Yeah.
Yeah,
No,
that makes sense.
that doesn't hurt. Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
it's kind of obvious, like whenever you start to feel the push, like you just don't have enough support. That's when you want to hire. But it's like for me right now, I have 2 shooters and myself, and one of my shooters, well, I have 3 shooters, but one's like barely ever shoots for me. One guy's full time, and he's my main guy. I give him everything I can. I shoot like 3/4 of the time, and then my other guy is like half time. And I want to hire at least one, if not 2 more people for spring and summer because I want to pull back from shooting. But I'm like, is there going to be enough work for them? Like I'm advertising more, I'm doing more in-person stuff, but it's like that fear of the unknown. Like it should be busier this year.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
yeah, it's tough to know when to pull the trigger and when to do it. And I want to be able to provide enough work for them. That's another thing. It's like I don't want to hire them on and promise them this and then, what expectation what do you tell your shooters? Like, do you give them, are they contractors or employees? Do you
That's a big
tell them
difference right there.
I'll give you a certain amount of work, like I guarantee you at least 3 shoots a week, or how do you manage that?
Sure. That's a big difference in the conversations right there. Along the journey, I've had full-time salary photographers. I've
Okay.
had hourly and I had independent. They
Mhm.
are all independent contractors now. I really like independent contractors. The one hiccup with independent contractors is you really have to make sure that you're hiring people that are on brand or bringing people in that are on brand,
Mhm.
because you can't force them to do things the way that you do them. So bring in people that care the same way that you care, that are a good natural fit for your brand, so you don't have to worry about that piece. And then what I'm looking for is my ideal hire typically has something else. They typically have a wedding photography business. They typically have commercial videos that they're trying to grow. They're trying to grow something themselves. So what I like to do is I like to partner with people like that, and I say, hey, like come in, we'll fill in the cracks in your schedule. And I'm brutally honest with them. I'm like, November 15th to January 15th, like you need to have a plan. Like whether that's you're saving up all summer, squirreling away nuts or something, you got to have a plan to get through that time frame. If somebody likes to do family photo sessions, that's a banging schedule because it's like, hey, we can cut you down on listings November 1st or even October 15th, and you can start doing your family mini sessions and you can start cranking those out, and then, pepper in some listings whenever you want. Weddings start booking. People get engaged at Thanksgiving, Christmas, New Year's. So the phone starts ringing and you need time for those consults. You need time to go to wedding shows. So I really look for people that have complementary ideas or efforts. If you're trying to be a breadwinner making, $60,000-$70,000 a year for your family, it's like, okay, man, like there's going to be some scary times along the way for you, because that's what real estate photography is. I'm just so brutally honest with people about that. So
No, that's
Yeah.
good advice. Yeah. I like
And
that.
I like that too. And then you don't feel like you're on the line as much. They've got something else going. So when it's slow, it's like, well, they got their other thing too. So they're not just dead in the water. I like
that's
that.
right. The journey that Ashton and I have been on with family photos, wedding photos, stuff like that. If somebody comes to me and they're like, hey man, like I'm hurting, I need to know what to do. It's like, hey man, let's talk about it. Have you thought about doing headshot? Have you thought about doing portrait photography? Have you thought about doing branding videos? Because Shutter House, we are exclusively focused on listings with Shutter House. If somebody wants to go do portrait photography, or hi, I'm Kevin, I'm in real estate for 10 years, I'm awesome, use me, they want to do those videos, it's like, cool, go do that on the side, man. Like, and if you need to borrow a lens or you need to borrow a microphone so that your videos look better or sound better, like I will give you my stuff. Like it turns into like a community.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
No, that's
Yeah.
cool. No, I love
Totally.
that. That's really great. No, I like that. That does make a difference too, because you're establishing community and trust and all those things that are great, that make those people trust you more and you trust them more and want to do good for each other. And no, I love that. I think that's great. I do the same thing, trying to get a little thing going down in Florida I have one shooter down there, but it's been really hard getting him rolling. But like I got to visit him. And when I was down there, I gifted him just a 50mm lens. And I was just like, hey man, you should do some headshot stuff. And we did a little quick mini session out in the field, like, hey, get started and just practice. This is your Christmas gift. Do whatever you want with it. But you could do family pictures. You could do whatever, even with this little 50, because he didn't have anything like that. But yeah, I totally believe in that stuff too. And it feels good to help somebody. And I really want to get this guy rolling too, right? Like,
yeah, of course.
Successful, whether it's with me alone, is because obviously I found somebody that I generally thought was a good person, so I'm like him to do well, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's cool. Well, Kevin, so all right, so you got those two, you had the two shooters, you had your wife, so you had a team of 4, is that right, when the merger came to be?
Yes. Yep.
Okay. And then I'm curious about the merger a bit, what made it appealing to you and to them. And did it just fill in some gaps? Because my other question is like, if that never happened, what would have your next move been in your own business? Or did that kind of fill in that hole of who your next hire was or something like that? You know what I mean?
Sure. So the competitor that I ended up merging with was the preferred photography company for the brokerage that I came from. Almost all of the clients that I had acquired over the years that I was independent was taking from them.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense?
Yep.
And actually, they were Tour Factory. They were the Tour Factory provider in Oklahoma. The whole reason that we went with HD Photo Hub was because it allowed me to compete with Tour Factory, because all of Tour Factory's old engineers went to create HD Photo Hub. So when I said, hey, I need this functionality to compete with my largest competitor, the guys instantly knew what I was talking about and were able to help. I had taken almost all of my clients from this competitor. I also knew the ownership of the competitor. Great guys, got along with them, out in the community at sales meetings. We were around each other. We knew each other. They were Tour Factory kind of got stale. They weren't updating their systems. They had seen how the industry had changed. So these guys, the Tour Factory company had been around for ages. You talk to Deanne down in Arizona. She got on into real estate media with OBO back in the day. This is the same group. OBO was in Tulsa and they became Tour Factory, and the systems had just gotten old and stale. So they wanted to make some changes. They were looking at bringing in an editing solution kind of like we had. They knew that we competed for a lot of the same business. We had mutual respect for one another. So they were looking at like, hey, we're looking at making all these changes. This guy over here has done everything that we're looking at maybe doing. Maybe we can bring him in and have a smoother process. And for me, on the flip side of that, I am super envious of people that start this entrepreneurial journey at like 25, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
When we went independent, my wife and I had 2 little boys at home, and now we've got 3 little boys at home. There was this thing, just being vulnerable with you guys, there was this thing happening where we were doing really, really well. but our lifestyle demands were really, really high. So like the opportunity to reinvest and try and take over other markets and try and expand and have full-time customer service, these were all barriers that we were running into just because of our lifestyle demands. So merging for me meant that I got to take a 5-year, like having the movie Click with Adam Sandler. I got to hit the next chapter, step into my sweet spot of sales and business development and not have to go through the growing pains.
Good for
That
you.
was what was in it for me.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
awesome. Yeah, I know. I've thought about merging. Since PMRE, I've been like, who's in Seattle that I could merge with? But then I'm like, I want to protect my baby. Like, I don't know. It's
Yeah.
scary. It's scary. So did you take their name when you got
No,
married?
man, there was a lot of pride in it from both sides. They didn't want it. I
Yeah.
was King and Country Media beforehand. Their photography team didn't want to be King and Country Media, and we didn't want to be Tour Factory. And
Mm,
Yeah.
Tour Factory was also a system, right? So like we
right.
knew that we didn't want to go with that system. So that name didn't make sense either. So
Yeah.
we sat around and looked up websites and came up with a new brand.
Very cool.
Cool.
Let's talk about how you train your shooters when you bring new
Okay.
ones on. Do you have like a training module they go through? How long does it take?
Sure.
Yeah.
So right now we're batting 1,000 with bringing people on that know something about a camera.
That's good. Yeah.
Well, nope. I take that back. I forgot. We have one team member that we've brought on that had never held a camera in his hands ever.
Wow.
He was doing drone inspections for like insurance claims.
Okay.
And man, can you imagine being the guy that goes out for the insurance claims and the homeowner's like, is my roof going to get paid for or what? Right. I'm talking with the guy. I'm like, man, you're going to love being a residential real estate photographer. It's so much less stressful. And how many people do we get to tell that residential real estate photography is going to be less stressful than what they're doing? So
Right.
it was cool. But even still, he had some knowledge of a camera. He understood what ISO was. He understood what shutter speed was. So I really, really, really like someone that understands at least the basics of, ISO makes the camera brighter. You know what I'm saying? But that does not have real estate photography experience. I prefer people that do not have real estate photography experience. I am looking for someone that kind of knows something about a camera, that loves being around people, that likes serving people, that wants to make the world a better place. That's what I'm looking for. So that's what I hire for. I look for somebody that is hungry, that isn't super arrogant or cocky, and that they know how to get along with people. And then we teach them everything else from there. So with everybody that we've hired, them having some experience with cameras, the training process has been as little as 3 days. And then I think the longest that we've spent is about a week and a half or 2 weeks. I
Dang.
do want to give the disclaimer though. I'm 8 years into real estate media at this point, and I still want to be a student. Like I still want to look at things. I still am like looking over the fence at other photographers in our team or outside of our team. I'm like, what are you doing? Like, what are you doing that I'm not doing? Do I like that? How does that work? Is that beneficial? The training process for us never really stops. But hey, here's horizontals, verticals. Here's how you shoot a center island. Here's the the appropriate amount of coverage for a kitchen. That can take, I mean, we typically are like a week and a half, but that's a minimum of 2 or 3 shoots a day.
Okay. That's what I was
And
going to ask.
ideally
Like,
3 to 5 shoots a day.
oh, wow.
Oh, okay.
So are they just going out with a couple of your team members or just driving from who's doing the training?
It would be me or my business partner. As we continue to scale, certainly we'll look to find people that are able to be trainers for us in certain markets, but they go out with us that are in ownership. So
you're shooting personally, like you're actually doing the shoots for your clients and they're just tagging along, shadowing you basically.
yeah,
Okay.
it's a ride along program, right?
Yeah.
So and it starts with like, hey, the first 2 shoots I'm going to show you what I'm doing and I'm going to talk to you about what I'm doing. Like the first shoot, man, if the first shoot can be vacant, that's such a sweet spot because I can take my time and I can be like, look, this is what I'm doing. This is what I mean by a horizontal. This is what I mean by a vertical. Here's why I'm raising the camera around the kitchen or whatever. And then, like the second shoot of their training phase is like, hey, I'm not going to say anything to you. I need you to stay as close to me as possible. Stay out of the way. I want to show you what this looks like at full speed.
Okay.
So the first shoot, I kind of want to give you some ideas. The second shoot, I want to let you know what the end process is going to look like. And then we're going to start, kind of go back and start building off of that first shoot. And doing more of that. If I feel like they're picking it up, maybe the last shoot on the first day, they're shooting the living room. And it just kind of, it becomes a handoff process to where, I start by telling them what I'm doing as I'm showing them what I'm doing. And then I start telling them what to do as they have the camera. And then the last two phases are, they're now shooting and I'm asking them, hey, you just raised the camera. Hey, you just panned to the left a little bit. Why did you do that? What were you looking for? And they're like, well, I'm trying to balance the negative space on either side of the image. I'm like, oh man, like, celebrations are going off. They've got it.
They understand framing.
Right. So once we get to that point, there's still like another day or two of training to where we're riding together, we're showing up at shoots together, but I'm just staying in the truck answering emails and text messages or probably scrolling Facebook. But I'm on site in case if they need me, because I don't know how it is where you guys are at, but here there's a lot of repetition in the floor plans. And the last day or two where we'll ride along and stay in the truck is like, okay, maybe we haven't gotten a house with a swimming pool yet, but this one does. And I want to be able to like step into that moment and help them shoot the swimming pool. Or maybe it has a really super luxurious bath that they've not seen before. It's like, okay, so I'll do like the property walkthrough with them and then go sit in the truck if they don't need me.
Nice. And then you're checking all their photos before you leave, I'm assuming.
It depends on the photographer. Yeah, I mean, the first couple times, yes. The last day or two of training, no, not really. I don't stay out in the truck until I'm really confident that they've got it.
Neal, sorry, I have to interrupt. Real quick, I have one thing to talk to you about.
Rachel.
I know. Okay, have you had a client call you late at night trying to figure out how to get their video posted onto Instagram? They're like, I can't figure out how to get the video on Instagram. Can you help me? And I'm like, oh my gosh, you have to download it and email it to yourself, put it in a Dropbox folder or Google Drive. And they're like, I don't know how to do that. And I'm like, pull my hair out. Okay, we have a solution for you. HD Photo Hub came out with an app where your clients will download the app in the Apple Store or the Google Play Store. It's free for them to download and they can access all of their media from this app and download it straight onto their phone. All the photos, they can place orders online from the app. You're literally in their pocket and it makes it so easy for them.
And it's white labeled with your info. So it looks really cool that you have your own app. How cool is that? So, and what else is sick about this is because you're listening to Shooting the Shit, if you set up a configuration call with HD Photo Hub and mention Shooting the Shit that you heard about it from us, you're going to get a crazy discount, 33% discount, 1,000 credits for the app, which is a smoking deal.
It's normally 1,500 credits, you guys.
Yeah.
That's crazy. That's such a good deal. Take advantage. Get the app today. And that's a one-time fee and you're done.
You're going to look slick too for all your clients. You got your own white labeled app. Who is this guy?
Right? You have an app? That is absolutely fabulous. No pun intended.
Cheers to that.
Okay, back to the show. Yeah, that's great advice. I like that. Do you pay them? You pay them hourly for their training or is it per job?
So we pay per job. What we have right now is we do, I reserve the right to be wrong on this and change my mind later and have a different policy later. So like if this is 5 years from now and the policy is different, I'm sorry. Right now we pay them the full pay.
Oh, wow. Okay.
During training. I used to do half pay during training as like a motive to get them out of training faster so that they would have some like, the carrot on the stick in front of their nose to progress. But paying full pay in training makes me, I feel more confident in who we're going to get, to agree to training.
Yeah.
And we're going to get better people is kind of my thought there. So
nice. Yeah, I like it. I have a guy I need to reach out to this week. So I appreciate that feedback. I'm going to take you up on that because that would work. Well, for me, it's just been so hard to coordinate schedules with people that I've brought on. And it's like they'll come out to 3 shoots with me and then I'll have them shoot their neighbor's house, their friend's house and send me the images. And then we're critiquing over a Zoom call. And it's just so hard to get it dialed, with that little minimum amount of shooting they're actually doing. And half the ones that I've tried to train or tried to bring on, they don't practice. They don't send me photos. I'm like, I can't bring you on until I'm 100% confident and you have to be shooting. I'm like, shoot your own house 6 times. Like, I don't care. I just need it. I need to see what you're doing, where you're at. So I think the training method that you have kind of guarantees that it's going to get done in a week, week and a half. Like that makes sense when it's
Yeah,
that
so
hard.
as
Yeah.
we've brought on photographers from Oklahoma City and Wichita, part of the training process is you have to be willing to come to Tulsa, which is our home base. You have to be willing to come here for 2 to 3 days,
Okay.
like minimum. Put you up in a nice hotel. You have to go out with us on shoots. It's a must. I like even if somebody joined my team that had real estate photography experience, and I looked at their portfolio and I was like, oh my gosh, this guy's better than anybody that we have. He still has to go out with us for 2 days.
Okay. That makes sense. Yeah. Cause you always do a little bit different things and then they see how you interact with clients too, right?
The way
Yeah.
to
That's
interact with
the big one.
clients is the biggest thing.
Yeah.
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 Because how do you go into somebody's house, right? Like
Yeah.
you look at the most stressful things in life, and real estate and moving is in the top 5. We don't talk about this enough. Like the seller is there and they are so nervous. Did I do everything that I was supposed to do? Does it look right? I'm sorry that my kid's running through your shot. Like, you know,
Yeah.
so how to deal with people is such a big part of what we do. That is 100% why that even if somebody had an award-winning portfolio, like you've got to go out with us for 2 days and see how we treat people.
That's great.
That's that old adage that you hire the smile, because you can't train that part. You can train the
Yeah.
rest. You can train the technical stuff, but if they don't have the right attitude, it's not going to work. Yeah.
So
Cool.
what's your like retention for your shooters? Like how long have they been on board? What's your turnover?
Oh man, that's that's a can of worms. Um,
Let's open it. Come on.
all right, gosh, it's no secret. The people that I'm worried about offending, they know the truth. So folks that I have hired are all still with us except for one.
Okay.
She felt a call to ministry on her life, and
Hmm.
a call from the Lord is not something that I can or would even want to try to compete with. And she's actually working in the children's department at our church. So,
Oh, good for her.
Oh, nice.
yeah. So the first guy that I hired, he is still with us 4 years later. And it's not really fair to like flex on the fact of the people that we hired last year are still with us. Like, but they
Right.
are. I mean, they're still with us. I have had people that I let go. I had one guy that after the first week of training, he was asking me questions, and I would tell him, I was just being brutally honest with him. I mean, just so brutally honest, telling him the reality of like, hey, I could get off work today and have nothing on my schedule for tomorrow and be dreaming of a day at the lake. And then by the time dinner's over with, now I've got my first shoot of the day is an hour and a half away. And, I'm just kind of like sharing with him the realities of things. And he kept saying things like, oh man, that would drive me nuts. I would hate
Mm.
that. So
You're like,
after the first week of training, I just called him in on Monday morning. I said, hey man, like I can wait for you to realize this and make a mess for you and my clients, but I am supremely confident that this is not the right role for you. So I'm going to go ahead and let you go. Sweet kid. He offered to find his own replacement.
oh wow, that's nice.
Yeah.
But so we let him go. And then there was one guy that got into a car accident and couldn't tell me when his car was going to get fixed. So I was like, I can't just leave you on the schedule forever. But the retention's very, very high.
That's great.
I
Good for
yeah.
you. Yeah.
Impressive.
I know I've had my
Yeah.
2 guys since for like 3 going on 1 going on 4 years. I feel like once you find the good fit, you treat them right, you pay them well. Going well for me so far. So it's
I
awesome.
will say the company that we merged with had a lot of photographers, and we have 2 of them left. I am big on culture. I'm big on who are we, and we all need to be in agreement on who we are. We can do things differently, but there needs to be Shutter House is the vibe, man, and how we serve and how we treat people. There's a culture to that, and it's funny. You start establishing things like that, and then you do the next part of holding people accountable to it, like not rudely, like not lording it over them, but just like asking questions like, hey, how's this going? Like, how's that going? Like, why didn't we turn off the ceiling fans in this house? Like that's a brand standard. You know what I'm saying? Like that's right after shutting toilet seats. You just start asking questions on stuff like that. And people that are not the right fit tend to see themselves out.
Yeah.
So
Do you do anything culture wise to try and kind of build that culture and that vibe? Is there anything like structure wise documents you have about culture, or is it just from the training and weeding them out?
Personality test.
yeah. So I'm a huge fan of Patrick Lencioni. I'll give you my number one hiring secret right now is his book, Ideal Team Player, is my go-to for what I'm looking for when I'm hiring. the formula in there is hungry, humble, and smart. They want to get things done. They're humble, and smart is not like IQ, but it's like emotional intelligence, people smart.
Okay.
So that's who we're hiring for. And then as far as accountability and documentation and pieces that we put in place, it's in our photographer agreement that you will do a walkthrough. Like that's new for 2024. I picked that up at PMRE, that you'll do a property walk before you start shooting. We have monthly sales meetings. They've been monthly. I think I'm going to move them to quarterly because we're doing really, really well. But yeah, we have
What
sales
do
meetings
you?
where we
Oh,
go
go
ahead.
ahead. You're gonna tell me.
Oh yeah.
Sorry.
We have sales meetings where I want the photographers to hear market updates. One of my business partners owns a mortgage brokerage. I sit in on a lot of sales meetings with real estate brokerages. So we start off our sales meetings with just kind of letting them know, hey, this is what's happening in the market right now. So when they're out on site with realtors, they can speak from an educated position on what's happening in the market. The next thing that we talk about is, how are our sales doing? We talk about wins. We talk about areas that we need to grow in. Recently as our team has changed, we've been getting client feedback and they've been telling us like, hey, we love this about how you guys are growing and how you're changing. And we just, it's just one of the leadership basics, like celebrate the things that you want to see more of, right? Like you see a glimpse of awesomeness, celebrate it because that lets people know that that's what we're about. So we've been getting together once a month. We have a group me for each of our markets. And then we have a group me for all company. And we'll send out things in all company, hey, here's some detail shots that so-and-so crushed it on so that they can so their eye can start to develop. Or I'll do a selfie video and I'll say, guys, I just heard a story. Let me tell you about what happened. And I'll send that out to the team just so they're kind of getting the benefits of all the conversations that are happening around us. So
Yeah, I do that. I like send a text message to the group, tell if we got good feedback saying, hey, so and so was so excited about your photos. Like and they love to hear it. Like my shooters love to hear that feedback. It just makes their day. And it makes my day when I get feedback like that. I'm like, yes, we're doing something right. Because I feel like we're always just getting beat up left and right. Like this isn't good enough. So it's nice to hear the good things. So yeah, good for you. Yeah, that's awesome. So who was the author of that book? I wrote it down, Ideal Team Player by Patrick
Lencioni.
Oh boy. I'm just going to pretend like I can spell it. I'll look it up later. We'll put a link in the bio below for it.
Len something, yeah.
Yeah. We'll put a link in the bio for sure. No, I'm definitely going to get that one because, yeah.
Would you say there's anything in particular, Kevin, that's helped you grow and set you apart from competition?
Yeah. I'm having to, this sounds so silly. I'm having to learn to care about the P&L. I'm having to learn to care about the profit margins. I care most about, like, hey, if this was my mom's listing, did the photographer care? Did they go in or did they go in and say, hey, it's not my job. This should have been done before I got here. I'm just the photographer.
Right.
I'm deeply, deeply passionate about people having a good experience and us, even the 2-bedroom, 1-bath, $80,000 thing that you're like, oh man, it kind of smells funky in here. Like, man, that's like a lot of times that's grandma's estate. Like that's somebody's life work that, what I'm saying? Like that's the final piece of their estate that's going to get resolved and that's going to be a blessing to the kids. So I am way too idealistic, way too sentimental. I just lean into that, I guess. So
yeah, I think that's great. It just shows that you care, that you're human, that you think about the emotions behind the transaction. It's not just money. It's not just another shoot.
Yeah.
Right. Like money's got to happen. We've got to be profitable so that we can keep doing this. Right.
Of course.
But yeah.
But yeah, to actually care, and asking questions when you're on site, like about the listing and about their business and just trying to build those relationships with your clients goes a long ways too. For sure.
Yeah. And, even beyond the clients, the sellers, the funniest thing that happens as a photographer is when you leave a project and it can be a headshot session, it could be a real estate photography, it can be a wedding. And somebody's like, hey, you did such a great job. It's like, you haven't seen the photos yet. Like, I'm not the DJ. I'm not here for entertainment. You haven't seen the photos yet, but people are complimenting you that you did a good job on the way out the door because they had a good experience. That will make up for bad photography, right? Like people are going to open up that email and they're like so excited to see what they did because they had a good experience with you. And they're like, oh yeah, this is all right. And it could be a complete dog turd, but they had a good experience. So I don't want to deliver dog turd photography. So like, let's do good photography and give that good experience, and that becomes irresistible, right?
No,
Yeah,
I agree
totally.
totally. I totally agree. Yeah, I see other photographers, their work and stuff, and you go, really? They didn't take a second just to move that mop? Like, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like,
Yeah.
put it behind you. What the,
Yeah.
it didn't, it's not going to kill you, you know? Yeah. No, I feel
Yeah.
that way about it too. Like I always feel like when I'm in a house, like, cause I know I grew up in a house that we had to sell a couple times and I know all the connections and all that it wasn't ever easy. And so I've always felt like not only am I helping the realtor, but I've always had this connection to helping the homeowners, you know what I mean,
Yes.
succeed too.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
they're so
I
tired and stressed out. I mean,
yeah.
I think we had a whole episode on this, Neil, about like
Oh yeah,
taking care of your clients and going in
totally.
and complimenting them on the hard work that they've done and empathizing
Yeah.
with them like, man, you must be exhausted, but it's all going to pay
Yeah.
off. This place looks amazing. Like, go sit
That's not
down.
commonplace, man. Like those compliments of like, hey, wow, great job, guys. Even like if you can tell that they worked really hard, but you
Mhm.
know that it's not nearly what the last one was or what the
Oh
next
yeah.
one you hope it is. But yeah, you just compliment them, man. Like
Yeah.
you can tell that they worked hard.
Oh, a ton
Yeah.
of times I'll be leaving and they go, well, hope it went okay, you know, because they're nervous about it, right? They got a
Yeah.
lot invested in this.
Yes.
And yeah, I'll always go, oh, yeah, you guys did a great job. It's going to look really great. And they're like, oh, you can just see it go, you know
That's
what I
it.
mean?
Yeah. Yep.
I love it when
Yeah.
my clients are like, did it photograph well? And I'm like, yep. I mean, it's a house. It did. It really smiled a lot and very photogenic.
Love it.
Awesome.
What would you say, looking back, Kevin, if you had to give advice to people like me, really just starting to grow a team a little bit from being a single shooter to just going out to have a couple more shooters? What advice, what have you learned to stay away from, and what would you give for advice?
Yeah, man, I talk with a lot of people in our industry. I love talking with people in our industry, and I've got friends that are solo and never want to scale. And I've got friends that didn't know anything about photography, and all they got into it for was because they saw the scaling potential. My advice would be just make sure that that's something that you actually want to do.
Uh-huh.
Make sure that you know what you're getting yourself into, because running a team of people is not the same as like, oh gosh, I love the way this house is photographing. The stager did such an awesome, like it's a totally different life. And nobody has ever, so I'm a huge fan of the Craig Rochelle podcast, and I'm sure that millions of other leadership minds have said this, but it's like the 80% rule. Like if you bring somebody in and they do something 80% as well as you would have done it, like that's a winner. Like because they will eventually get there. But if you're the purist and you're the boutique service and your shots are all home and garden magazine worthy, and that's what you love, scaling may not be your thing. But
Mhm.
on the upside of that, man, you could probably charge double what I do. And
Totally.
there are people that are going to pay for that. They're getting the best guy, in the Midwest, or the best guy in the Northwest, or whatever. Just be careful if leading people and building a team and dealing with the frustrations and the late night phone calls and the early morning meetings and the telling somebody for the 17th time how to do something. Like if that's not your thing, like
Oh,
buyer
that's
beware,
normal? Okay,
man.
good.
Yeah. Beware.
Ceiling fan. Yeah.
Yeah.
Move the shovels. Just move them so I don't have
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
Photoshop them out.
Yeah. And
Shots
so like
inside the house too.
so like let me give a pathway for folks that may need to scale but are like, I definitely don't want to deal with that. Figure out a way to start squirreling some money away to bring on somebody on your team to handle that part for you. Like you could be the creative director of your company. You don't maybe you scale this thing and your name's on it, or you decide the name of the company, but you don't have to be the CEO. You don't have to be the quality control person. Does that make sense? Like if you are desperately feeling a need to scale, and maybe that's your retirement plan is to scale this thing, bring in people that are passionate about those things. Because if you try to force the square peg into the round hole, like it's just not a good fit. Your passions are your passions. The things that energize you are the things that energize you. And if don't feel like you need to scale because everybody in every forum is telling you that you have to.
That's good
Yeah,
advice.
totally. No, I love that. Yeah, keep being a photographer and hire somebody who's a manager, right? Or
Yeah.
whatever.
Mhm.
Love it.
what
Very
your
smart.
strengths are, and
Super smart.
hire everyone for all the other stuff.
What about growth for like outside of like just doing a great job? Have you ever invested in any advertising? Any of that stuff work for you?
Not yet.
Yeah.
You haven't invested, or it hasn't worked?
Have invested minimally. Now I'm going to try some things in first quarter of 2024. We're getting ready to redo some packaging. We're getting ready to differentiate some pricing in different markets based off of goals that are specific to those markets. We're redoing our website to have a better outside sales cold lead experience. And then I'm going to launch a marketing campaign later this quarter and try that. I tried it with like, hey, free drone shots. It didn't work. I mean, we got enough business to pay for the advertising we did, but that was it. Up to this point, merger included, and everything that they had accomplished, it is all word of mouth. It is all networking. It is all partnerships. All very, very relational.
Wow. So in person,
Good
what
to
kind
hear.
of in-person events are you doing? I heard you say something about, you're in on
Yeah.
meetings with lenders and stuff.
Part of our business model is that we want to have a handful of brokerages in each market that we have a very, very intentional relationship with. If the brokerage culture is a good fit for our culture and all things are good, we'll do like a lunch and learn and like tell everybody like, hey, like we'll bring in Chick-fil-A or Papa John's or whatever. And we'll show people, we'll talk about how to market a listing. We'll talk about ideas for marketing a listing. But what I'm really doing is I'm really walking them through our systems. And you know what I'm saying? Like, they're like, oh my gosh, I would love to order online. I'm tired of having to wait, 3 hours of texting back and forth to set things up. Oh my gosh, look at, next day delivery. Holy cow. Look at the marketing kit. Wow. We do that lunch and learn. And then I want to be at every single sales meeting that I can be at. These guys are having monthly sales meetings. Typically, the office manager, like those small office meetings, are even more valuable than the like all company sales meetings, because the office managers are looking for things to fill up time with. They're being like, they have to have a 45-minute or hour-long meeting once a month, and they're looking for things to add value. So I'm like, hey, cool, I can help add value. If you don't have a lot of time, I can take 2 minutes. I can say, hey, did you see the new reel that we released this month? Or I can, take 10 minutes and say, hey, we've launched a new service. Let me show you what it's like. Let me tell you when to use it. I want to be at any in-person thing that I can be at. I mean, like if you look at what the title companies are doing and what the mortgage companies are doing, they're at all of those things, man. It is worth the time slot, giving up from being on shoots to have somebody there with a polo on and a logo on and smiling and shaking hands, and once or twice a year bringing breakfast to, earn your keep, I guess.
And do you do that? How often do you go to like a brokerage that you know well? Do you go there a couple times a year for these lunch and learns, or like a lunch and learn versus just
Yeah.
the meeting, the sales meeting?
Yeah, so a lunch and learn specifically for us is like maybe a once a year thing. And then if they want to do a continuing education piece, I've got a continuing education piece that I go in with, and it's when to use what. Hey, man, like you've got all these different things in real estate media. There's 360 tours, there's drone photos, there's property lines. I can do a continuing ed piece if they want to, or we could, this year, I am going to try and do a continuing ed piece on copyright. That that should be a thriller.
Fun.
Yeah. Riveting.
I want to go to that. I'm like, ooh, can we have you on as a guest again?
Yeah.
We can talk about that.
Once or twice a year for like me bringing in food. But if they have a monthly sales meeting, my goal is for every brokerage that we have a partnership with, I want to be at every monthly sales meeting that we can be. If I can't be there, I want somebody there. Just staying top of mind, right?
Yeah, that's got to build that culture too with them. They see you're invested, right?
Right.
Who else is in? What other photographers in the room? Probably nobody.
Right. And the thing is that the reason that we have this strategy, I don't have a problem with any brokerage that we don't have a partnership with. We serve people with all different color yard signs in the yard. But the strategy with having a handful of intentional relationships with brokerages is these brokerages, I can walk in, I can high five the receptionist and walk right past her. I can walk around to all the offices and I can say, hey, how's it going? And if I don't know you yet, I'm Kevin with Shutter House. How's it going? Do you need anything? How are your listings going? Anything we can do to help with? If it's people that I know, I'm like, hey, how'd the last shoot go? So it's just being relational. So
Good for you.
Good
That's awesome.
stuff.
Are you on social media? You are on social media, obviously. That's
a little
how
bit,
I
not
reach out
enough.
to you, but
Yeah. Not enough. Everything good on our social media, my wife does. And like, she's totally got other things going on. She's a saint for doing that for me. We need to do more with social media. I would love to bring on somebody that knows how to do social media well this year.
Next hire, maybe. Yeah.
Possibly. Yeah.
That's cool. You know, speaking of services and stuff, so I checked out your website. And so one thing I noticed that I thought was interesting, unless I just missed it, there wasn't a lot of actual examples of the work, which I thought was interesting. It was more just about, we're going to help you marketing. It was just more about that. And I thought that was cool. And I thought it was of note that to mention that it's not necessarily that your website is 1,000 photos. And then I also wanted to talk real quick about some of your services. I looked at how you set up your services and I thought it was a cool workflow. You'll see a Neal Young book from the wrong state. You know, I have an account now. Well, there was one service I wasn't familiar with. And that was I forget what it was called now, but it was a virtual sort of aerial thing or something
Virtual
like that.
Sky Tour. Yeah.
That's it. Yeah.
Really?
So
Is that...
tell me about the Sky Tour.
Yeah. So the Virtual Sky Tour is like a Matterport or a Zillow 3D, but it's from the air. If you think about a ranch property, it'll start with a faraway shot that shows the entire layout of the place. And there's, you know, little arrows, just like in a Zillow 3D or Matterport. And it'll say, hey, here's the house, here's the arena, here's the barn, here's the pond. But you can click there and go there, and it's a 360 view. Like the original view is a 360 view too. So you can say like, hey, the property's over here, but what's in this direction over here? You can look around in every direction.
That's awesome.
And
is
if
that
the stops, you can look in every direction too.
And is that just a function of like Google Maps or Google Earth or something like that?
I am still supporting the DJI drones right now. I don't know what Altel has, but the DJI drones have the spherical panorama image. And then we load that into Cloud Pano. Cloud Pano really was not meant for aerial tours, but the way that the platform works, you can build your own virtual sky tour really, really easy.
Okay, so it is a function that you record from the drone. I have seen some things advertised about you don't need to go physically record, that were just pulled from data from like Google somehow. Do you know what I mean? Satellites and whatnot.
Yes. Yep.
Interesting.
Cool.
Yeah. Tacey Youngman from Snowberry Lane, she's out here in Washington. She just told me about that. And I was like, that's crazy. I love it. So cool. Yeah. And she said something else too about like rendered drawings for the exterior. Like, is that through Cloud Pano as well?
I don't think that's through Cloud Pano. Hopefully none of our clients are listening to the podcast, right? But like, I think
They aren't. Trust me.
I don't
not
think they
not
do.
anymore.
Not anymore.
Maybe
Turn it
5
off now.
minutes.
I think Box Brownie and websites like that do some of those services.
Okay. Cool. So I'll just mark it up and use them. No.
Honestly, like,
right, you could.
that's the thing. Like, if you have the bandwidth to facilitate the uploading and dealing with all of that for them, then yeah, mark it up and do it. I have never had the bandwidth to deal with all that.
Yeah.
All those shenanigans. So I just tell people, go to Box Brownie.
Yes, that's true.
Yeah.
Is there anything else you can think of, Neal? Is there anything else you want to talk about, Kevin?
Kevin, I always want to make sure that before we wrap up on anything, was there anything else that you would like that you after go, oh, I wish I gave this advice to people out there?
No, I'm good, man. The only thing I'm trying to figure out in 2024 is how to expand better, how to expand to other markets better. So, if I guess if you're listening and you're tired of running your own business and you wanna hang out and do the Shutter House thing, holler at me. I guess that would be my only thing.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So how can people find you on Instagram or
Instagram?
Facebook?
We are at Shutter House Tours.
Okay.
So
Perfect.
you can find us on Instagram and Facebook by at Shutter House Tours. And if you want to get a hold of me, just Kevin@shutterhousetours.com. So hit me up.
Yeah.
Love it. Cool, man. It's been a pleasure, dude.
Thanks for coming
such
on.
great information. Thank you so much.
Cool. Thanks for having me on, guys. Appreciate it.
Of course.
Yeah, of course. All right. Talk to you later. Thanks, everybody. We'll see you on the next one. Toodaloo.
Bye.